Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 1992 Toyota Supra 2 litre GT Twin Turbo. Now this is part of the third generation produced between 1986 and 1993, and this was also the first generation where the Supra became its own model, as the Celica also became its own model as well, since they shared the same platform and were regularly named side by side in the previous two generations. Around 240,000 of these were made, while it was also the second best-selling generation in the USA after the second generation. And this version itself was only available in Japan. And this is unlike the other versions of this version of this car. It's far more of a Grand Tourer than a out-and-out sports car. So it's got a decent amount of luxury in the interior. It's also got plenty of space in the rear for a couple of adults or children, and it's also got a decent amount of boot space as well. So it's an extremely practical car for its type. But yeah, one thing I do really like about this car is the styling. I like the side profile, I like the proportions. It's got a long nose, short rear tail, so it's a proper coupe styling. And even though it does look dated in comparison to cars today, I do still like the look of it, and crucially it has pop-up headlights, which I like the coolest thing ever. And engine wise it's actually fairly decent, even though this is far from the most powerful version of the car. There was a more powerful 3 litre inline 6, and there was also a more powerful 2.5 litre inline 6 that was also only available in Japan. This, as you've probably guessed from the name, has a 2 litre inline 6 twin turbocharged engine, which produces 206 horsepower and 203 pounds-feet of torque, which granted is nowhere near as much as some turbocharged cars from the time. The 944, for instance, has more power than this. Savannah RX-7 doesn't quite have as much power and torque as this, but is far lighter. So it's not the best of its class, but like I said, it's a Grand Tourer and not an out-and-out sports car. And as a Grand Tourer, it's an excellent vehicle, because having two turbochargers means that those turbochargers can be smaller. A big problem with turbocharged vehicles at the time was that they usually just had one, and they were very large, and they also came with turbo lag, especially if you weren't in the right gear. So two turbochargers means that you can have them smaller but still have the same kind of power advantages that you would have just with the singular one. And they were clearly proud of the fact it had two turbochargers, because it's got the badging at the front there, and then it's also got badging at the rear as well on the left. So clearly proud of it, and with good reason, because not many cars did have two turbochargers at the time. The only two I can really think of from the same period are the Porsche 959 and the Ferrari F40, which were obviously far more expensive than this. So to have a car with two turbochargers on something that's relatively inexpensive was quite a feat, really. And hats off for Toyota to doing it. So cracking vehicle all around. Though, to be fair, the lack of power does also harm it in the fact that it does weigh a fair bit at 3,329 pounds, but that's no surprise considering all the gear that is on it and the fact that this car is quite a large vehicle, especially in comparison to a 944 or an RX-7, which are far smaller, and you can tell that by their interiors. The RX-7, for instance, has barely any space in its rear for passengers, so this certainly has practicality on its side, and like I said, I really do like the looks. But a lot of this car is about how it drives, so let's get out onto the open road and see what it can do. So even though this is down on power and up on weight over its rivals, this goes for a far more mixed bag of sports coupe and Grand Tourer, which I think they got pretty much bang on, because it's got the gorgeous looks of a sports coupe while having a spoiler and a twin exhaust system. But it's also more refined than its competitors. It's more spacious on the inside and in terms of its boot space, and it's also more refined as well, because it's got two turbochargers, and it's not going for outright power, because two turbochargers means at the end of the day they can be lower pressure, but it also means that you're getting a quieter engine noise as a result as well. And I'm all fine with that, to be honest, because this car still handles really rather well despite its weight over its rivals, and that is well balanced, and it handles its weight really rather well as well. So So yeah, I'm overall satisfied with how this car performs really, even though its acceleration is a bit of a downer, and if you do look at it like that, then you're not going to be happy with this vehicle, as it can only do 0 to 60 in 8.2 seconds, 0 to 119.3 seconds, and going to a top speed of 149 miles an hour. Now that top speed is reasonable, it's around the same kind of speed as a Porsche or a Mazda from the same period, though it is slightly less, but yeah, obviously the acceleration times are way down on those vehicles, which is to be expected. It's heavier, and even though it is a bit more powerful than the Mazda in terms of power and certainly in terms of torque, because obviously that's a Wankel rotary engine and they typically do not have all that much torque, that car is far lighter than this, which is what gives it its advantage. But yeah, I'm really not fussed about comparing it, outside of obviously giving you some context in terms of what other vehicles were like at the time, because at the end of the day this offers a refined, enjoyable drive that at the end of the day is also still fun to drive, because it's rear wheel drive and it's got a decent amount of power and a decent amount of speed. And yeah, drifters certainly do like this car for its rear wheel drive and front engined layout, which again, other vehicles from the time also had that, but they were also more expensive and I imagine a lot less tunable than this. And yeah, I know a lot of people do prefer the next generation Supra to this, but this is my personal favourite of the generations that we've had on Forza games before. Though to be honest, we've not had this one on a Forza game for a long time. I think the last time we had it on a Forza Motorsport game was Forza Motorsport 4. Whether or not we had it on the previous two Horizon games I can't remember, but either way we've not had this car all that often on Forza games, which is a great shame, because yeah, it is easily one of my favourite Toyotas, as well as also one of my favourite Japanese vehicles in general. And yeah, it's overall really rather good. Now yeah, you get this vehicle by doing a championship on the current festival playlist. It's only a free race championship, so it's not too arduous to do, and at the end of the day you get a really great vehicle like this that has pop-up headlights, a nice sounding engine with you know, decent amount of speed and acceleration and good handling to match as well. So yeah, really do like this car, and yeah, I think it's far too underrated, which in the context of the Super generations is understandable, because the next generation was obviously part of pop culture and it was obviously a faster car, a more iconic looking vehicle as well, so I can understand why this is more underrated than that, but it's not deserved in any way. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.